All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome to the Acceptable Accuracy Podcast. This is Tyler.
And I'm Philip.
And we have a special guest today at our podcast. Today, we're going to talk about another USPSA episode, and our guest is Isaac. Go ahead and introduce yourself, man.
Hello, I'm Isaac. I friends with both Tyler and Phil. Definitely very excited to be able to shoot with them today, and it was a blast.
Dude, that's awesome, man. So I guess we'll just jump right into it. Like, Isaac, what got you into firearms to begin with?
I've always just thought firearms are super cool. Like, obviously, growing up playing video games, like, is how a lot of people get into the firearm infatuation. And then I really wasn't allowed to even have like an airsoft gun at home growing up. Like my parents were pretty against guns.
Huh.
I've since won them over, thankfully. But I used
How
to
did that happen? I'm actually really curious to hear this story. How did you kind of convince your parents over?
Well, within the last few years, whenever I would visit, I would just take my guns over, and I first just started them off by showing them how to clear a gun and make sure it was safe. And then they could kind of watch what I was doing. And then the next time I would come over, I would clear it, show them it's safe, and then with it unloaded, have them check it out.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next time I would have them like, hey, like, here, remember, like we talked about how to make sure the gun is safe, it's cleared, and then I would have them do it. Mm-hmm. And it was just like very like patient step by step. I would get them to handle it more until we were literally like dry firing in their living room.
Dude, that is so cool.
Yeah, it was a few years of just every time I would visit, I would pull out my stuff and show them and go over the basic steps and make sure to start from square one again until, they actually own their own firearms now. So,
oh wow, you like went, you really went and convinced them that everything was cool with firearms.
Yeah, you did.
I played the long game for sure.
Yeah.
Like, how long of a period are we talking about here? I assume years, like you said, but
yeah, it was like probably 2, 3, maybe 4 years.
That's actually pretty quick turnover.
That is a very quick turnover.
Yeah.
So how did you get into firearms, and if your family was not into shooting firearms at all? Like you said, video games, but like, what made you purchase your first firearm?
Well, what started my real love of firearms is every single summer I would go to summer camp, and I would get away, and at camp I would legitimately spend all of my money on Bosco sticks and the 22 range. Like that's.
Oh wait, okay, yep, I remember this now.
Is this a certain camp in northern Michigan that you went to, Isaac?
It is, yeah.
That I will be going to on Monday.
Yes, it is the same camp.
That's hilarious.
Funny enough that
for a camp, they actually do have a very nice range. I will say, with a really
they've come a
nice
long way
backstop
in the past like 5 to 10 years. It's amazing what they've done to the camp.
Anyway,
yeah, it was definitely great, and that's how I spent my summers. Is every single summer I would go, and there was even a time where we didn't have enough people because it was a church event typically, but we didn't have enough people who wanted to go, so my mom would drive me up and drop me off for the week.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah,
I didn't know that was even an option. Tyler, will you drive me up to the camp and drop me off?
No, I mean, I'm going on. I mean, you are more than welcome to join me on Monday if you want to.
How's their internet access up there? Can I work from there?
You can work at the McDonald's down the road.
No.
I'm actually kind of half serious. Their Wi-Fi has gotten better, but you're probably looking at like 10 megs. We were just there last fall.
Yes.
But okay, no, I guess that's really cool, man. So to kind of another reason why we invited Isaac on here is he is on our safety team as well. And I remember when Isaac first joined the team, he was ready to jump right into uh, start carrying, and we took him we took him out. We did the church qualifier with him, and he actually, believe he tied with the highest score for first try on the qualifier, which is extremely impressive to me. And I think you mentioned to me, Isaac, that you probably haven't shot in like 3 months at that point or something like that, because with the transition with everything going on in your life.
Yeah, I
And
had a really busy year, and it was about 6 months prior was the last time I had shot before that qualifier.
that's crazy.
Well,
And you
it's
used
funny.
a Glock 48 too, I believe, right?
Correct. Yep.
That's
He would.
crazy.
He probably would have had the highest score, but somebody didn't let him have his mulligan.
I know. Well, the guy, he didn't let him have his mulligan, and he just beat the timer on him without him even knowing. So that caused him to get a Charlie when he should have gotten an Alpha on it. So now, what an RO. Who was that?
I don't know.
Also the worst.
Does his name rhyme with Kyler?
Yes. Yes, it does.
Okay.
But the assistant RO who is there, whose name rhymes with
Not much.
Billup, he wouldn't stop him. So that's on him
Once
too.
the timer goes off, you can't stop. You got to fight through it. Anyway, so we shot with Tyler. Actually with Tyler all the time. We shot with Isaac. He did exceptionally well. And I don't. How did we start talking about USPSA with you, Isaac? I can't remember how this started.
I think it was when we were on safety team together. Like a Sunday, we were working, and we just started talking about gun stuff naturally. And you talked about all the competitions and different stuff you guys do and travel to.
Mhm. Yep.
And of course, I was like very willing to keep that conversation going.
Yeah, so one thing kind of led to another, and today, that's why actually we're recording today. And now, like, I mean, we're talking like 4 hours ago, actually, maybe just over 4 hours ago. Isaac was in the middle of shooting his first match, and I guess leading up to that match, what kind of like not ever shooting USPSA before, because your very first match, not shooting IDPA or any of the other disciplines. What kind of preparation did you do going into that match or into the day's match?
I mean, initially it was asking both of you guys a lot of questions, even
Mhm.
texting Tyler like, "Hey, like, what do I bring?" Like,
That's true. And what was the first thing I said?
AR-15.
No. Or one of the first. There are two things that I said specifically. I said, bring a cart and bring water and snacks. Those are like the two things I really emphasize, because I'm obviously the gun ammo, that's all given. But I was like, dude, it's gonna be nice. Those are two things that's just really nice to have. So, but yeah,
and
no,
you
I
were
really
correct.
go
Yeah,
for it.
you were correct. I mean, it would have been rough without a cart because you're toting around a lot of gear, and then you're out there in the heat, so having tons of water and then snacks and stuff to keep your energy and blood sugar up and
Hmm.
make sure it's not a rough day.
I agree. Well, it's interesting because I think that's another reason why recently I've been doing a lot better. Because in years past, I feel like I would usually, because typically we do about 8 stages for USPSA at our club. And usually around stage 5 or 6, I'm just absolutely smoked. And I think a part of it is because I just didn't bring enough food or snacks or something to just nourish me. So, but recently I just, like, even today, I brought my own like cooler. I had sparkling water. I had snacks. I had sandwiches. I had candy, chips. It was awesome, man. So I feel like it's making, at least for me, it's definitely making a difference. So
I
other what
think the
else?
gummy bears were the big difference.
One more time.
I think the gummy bears were really what made the
Yeah,
big difference for
yeah,
you.
bro. Oh, dude,
For the record, we live in Michigan, but these are normal gummy bears.
they're Albany. Oh my goodness. Yes, they are Albany. That's Albanese gummy bears, which are the best, by the way. Here, so Albanese, please sponsor us. That'd be amazing. So
It would be us to get a gummy bear company to sponsor us. That would be
I would be, dude, if they don't sponsor us, I'm gonna make my own gummy bear company. I am
well, yeah,
totally kidding, because I hear the margins for candy is terrible,
not
and
great.
it is one of the hardest business to get
Which is
into.
crazy considering how expensive it is right now.
It's insane. Like candy's hard.
Yeah. Well, unless it's soft candy. Anyway, so then Isaac came. You came and visited us at one of our matches. I think it was the May match.
Yeah, it was last month.
Yep.
2 months ago.
June?
Because last month Phil was out of town, and it was 2 months ago, and that was my best and worst match ever.
Yes, that was the one.
So when you came to visit us at the match, right? Other than like some people run around in very colorful jerseys with like their firearms hanging like 10 inches off their belt. Like what did you think? Was it what you expected from a USPSA match? Like I don't know if you watched any YouTube videos in advance or what to like. But I have been doing this, and I always research the crap out of everything when I do it. So even prior to shooting USPSA, when I started, I would watch YouTube videos, Instagram, all that stuff, right? So I guess I'm curious what your thoughts were, like watching a match.
Yeah, I've seen different videos before on YouTube and whatnot, and so like stage setup wise, it's definitely what I was expecting.
Mm-hmm.
But what was cool is, I mean, as I just followed you guys around through a few of the different stages, like I don't know, like when you're around gun guys, typically everyone's like, "Oh, tough guy, whatever." But like these guys were fun. Like they were coming up and introducing themselves, and like I was just there watching. They don't know who I am, and they're just like, "Oh, are you gonna shoot?" Or like, "Are you looking at this?" So it was just cool that several different people from the squad just came up and said, "Hey," and we're showing an interest, and we're also wanting to get other people involved, which typically in the gun community isn't our strongest suit. Typically,
So
people want you. They're
That's
like, "Oh,
legit.
you don't know this already," and so how you get more people involved is just by bringing more people in and making it fun and not making them feel dumb for not
Yeah.
knowing what's going on.
And I feel like that's also just a testament to the leadership of Brent and Daryl as well. Just how that's definitely their hearts of the match directors and our close buddies, our brothers. And I'm very thankful for them. Shout out to Brent and Daryl. You guys rock. And like, I know our squad. Obviously, I'm very biased because I only know our squad
Right.
4, but it's just all the guys. I had the exact same experience. I remember 3 years ago, Phil, I did a competition. I love how Isaac, you and Phil, I'm so different from you guys because for me, I was like, I'm not going to watch any of these videos. I'm just going to jump right in and I'm going to figure it out as I go. And I actually borrowed Phil's because at the time, all I had was my M&P Shield Plus. And at that time, I didn't know this, but I knew this. I had tons of issues with that gun because there was an issue with the firing pin. So sporadically, I would have the most random failure to feeds ever, and that's all I had. So I borrowed Phil's PCC, and that's what I ran for my first match. And then it was just awesome. I remember I had the exact same experience. Everyone was friendly. They're always giving me tips. They were just very welcoming, just open arms, like, hey, like you're a part of us now. Like you're part of our family now. You're part of our squad. So let's rock it together.
Yeah. We are known as the fun squad or the party squad. Just because of
Are we really?
Yes, because of the like attitude that we have towards the game, towards new people, towards just not trying to take ourselves overly serious. Now we definitely do josh each other, but usually it's reserved for the people that we've shot with for quite a while, right? So it's like with new people, like obviously we're going to be very encouraging, but when we're shooting a match and somebody has a mic, or how many did you have, Tyler?
Dude, I want to talk about it.
Okay. Anyway, then
I'm kidding.
We're like,
so I had
Tyler. Why, Tyler?
I had 4 mics today and a no shoot. But
the sad thing is Tyler is still finished 3 positions ahead of me.
I barely beat Phil today. It was really cool. It's just really cool though. Well, it's cool to see you improve as well, Phil, because I remember when I first started 3 years ago, like back then, I think we probably averaged about 60 people. And you and we would usually stick around like somewhere between that 30 to 40th place. So around middle of the pack. But it's really cool to see now today we're 77 and you and I were like, what, 24? And no,
you're 22.
I was 22 and you were 25.
25. Yeah.
So it's just cool to kind of see that we're like I feel like we're definitely competing with each other. Well, I mean, we're competing with ourselves, but of course, I feel like we're fighting to get better. Granted, today, what was really cool is you were very consistent today, Phil. I had amazing stages, and I had garbage stages. I had stages where I was like in the fives and sixes for hit factor, and I had stages where I was like in the twos. So,
Yeah, and it's funny because I hung around like the fours, and then I had a few stages that I was up in five that ended up doing like bringing my score up. But yeah, anyway, so we kind of got our squad kind of got to be known as like the fun squad or the party
yep.
squad. So I don't really, from my perspective of bringing new individuals into the shooting sports, especially with people that I know will jive really well with the squad, like I don't have any reservations of doing so.
Oh no.
When I first started shooting USPSA, there's a lot of USPSA, like any social thing. There's a lot of different like cliques, right? And I guess technically the Fun Squad has a bit of a clique, though we tend to be more open to people. And I've never really had a bad experience at South Kent with like being in a squad, but there's a difference between having a squad that is, they're cool with you there and they're going to help you out, but then there's also a difference with like the camaraderie level, right? And I think that that's something that we do as the Fun Squad, we do a really good job with, right? And it actually it's become a bit of a problem for us now, where if we don't sign up immediately on the Fun Squad, like it's tough to get into the Fun Squad. It fills up
Oh,
almost
dude.
immediately.
Speaking of that, I'm going to sign up for the next month's
Yeah, I'm
match.
gonna do that right now.
I'm literally doing
Isaac,
that
you should talk for a
right
little bit
now.
while we sign up.
I don't know if she's yeah, yeah. Go ahead, Isaac. Yeah, go ahead and chat while
Anyway,
we sign
so
up.
Isaac, I joke, but I do want to make sure that we get Isaac's kind of input here. So you came, you watched the match, everybody was very accepting, and then what did you do from there? Like, I'm curious, getting inside of your mind and how you function as a new shooter, because it's been from shooting competition for me, and it has always been USPSA. It's been CMP, Steel Challenge. For many years, I don't remember what it was like starting off. So again, kind of after watching the first match, what did you do from there on out?
From there, I just did dry fire practice,
Good
and
man.
I mean that's always the go-to. And as well as just I did look up some videos of just like basic stuff. I had gear that I knew I could already use, but I didn't know if there were tweaks I needed to make. Which one tweak was my holster was too low, so I had to replace that so that way it was the correct height. And um, there was a day I got together with you, Phil, and we went to the range and we put up a couple targets and just talked about things that typically you'll get DQ'd for as a new shooter, whether that's breaking the 180 or flagging yourself or whatever it is. But we
Man,
went
who
over
gets
some things.
DQ'd?
I know, right? Especially this year in 2024.
I know, right? It was not. That was
It's a
only
May
his
match.
best and worst match ever, too. He would have made like top
on the
10, but
last
no,
stage.
the very last stage, he was only like all he needed to do was get just a nice, calm, smooth stage, but he decided to rush through it and he DQ'd himself. But
Spoiler alert, it was
man,
not
what a guy!
myself or Isaac.
And
So
he.
I remember, Isaac, that when you and I went out, like to shoot together, you had a lot of questions that I thought were very like insightful. Like I kind of knew that you were going to do just fine at the match. By the way, after we were having that, I think I even told you that. But after we were having like the conversations, the questions, and going through the practice stages and everything, at that point, did you feel overwhelmed at all?
I think the part that may have been a little overwhelming is just the sheer amount of rules that there are.
Yes.
And like, I didn't want to do something really silly that would get me DQ'd. Because like I'm a competent shooter, I know firearm safety rules, I know not how to flag myself and others, but there's just the sheer amount of rules. I was like, am I going to do some silly thing and then get disqualified?
Yeah, it's tough. I will say USPSA, especially if you don't have somebody like that, you are a match that you go watch, squads you can talk to, or like somebody who take you through this. it is really difficult to like really understand why the rules are the way that they are, because like you said earlier, you mentioned that your gun was too low. So there's a rule in USPSA that the heel of the butt of your gun has to be above your belt line, right? And it's such a weird rule, but if you don't read through all of the rules and understand why, it doesn't make any sense, right? Like, why can't my gun be lower? Well, it's there for a reason, so people don't have super low hanging guns, right?
Right.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So, all right, so we went over the rules and everything, and then after that, after we had our kind of our range day to go over that, did you do anything else in preparation of the match?
I mean, I went back home and did more dry fire, and then I like that was a
Dude,
big
you're
part
awesome.
of
That's
just
great.
like going through reloads, making sure presentation is good,
Mm-hmm.
transitioning from different targets. One thing I did buy another piece of gear, which was a canted mag caddy,
Mm-hmm.
because I only have 2 pistol mags on my belt, and I was like, do I need a third? I see a lot of people have 4, 5, 6 mags, so I wanted to find out, well, how many mags typically will I need? Do I need more than 2?
Hmm.
So I bought that one and did some practice with it because it initially felt very weird being angled.
Really?
Um,
Okay.
but after, when I actually went to the range, I went to the range by myself and set up a couple targets and was just running different drills myself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it felt smooth. Like it didn't feel weird like it did during dry fire.
Yep.
And it definitely helped improve a lot. I did notice today, because it's a new addition to the kit, that there was at least twice that I kind of, one time I just, or there was twice, yeah, there was 2 times I just straight up grabbed from the mag caddies that I've always had on the
Mm-hmm.
belt and skipped the front one, which I was trying to grab, because that's what I've practiced and that's what I've
Oh
drilled.
yeah.
So it's ingrained in my system. So going into the next match, I'll have more time to actually practice with those extra mag caddies.
Yeah, and I will say there have been some changes to the policies with USPSA recently that have made it a lot easier for people to bring the gear that they own and shoot a match without having to make a massive investment in that initial purchase.
Yep.
Because I was thinking about like what you brought today, Isaac, and we'll kind of get into your firearm and why you chose that and everything. But um, one thing that is like there's a lot of people that have like a battle belt set up, right? Because whether they had it from airsoft back in the day or just like the draw of like that culture for having, like, I have one, right? Um, or if you're carrying like, and I know you didn't do this today, but if you're carrying appendix, if you have a drop leg or not drop leg,
Mm-hmm.
you have like a thigh
Eye
strap,
strap.
and if you drop your gun off, it used to be a lot of divisions didn't allow you to do that. So nor was thigh straps even allowed, right? And it make it the barrier a lot higher. So people are like, well, I don't know if I'm going to like this or not. And I know that you and I joked today, Isaac, that within the next couple matches, I guarantee you'll probably be online trying to find a USPSA race kit, right? Like
Right.
what they call it, because it's a natural progression. Now you can continue to run what you have for as long as you want, especially if that's like how you want to run it, right?
Mm-hmm.
All the gear that you had was completely legal,
Oh yeah.
and we have, like, Tyler and I have run our battle belts in matches before in preparation for matches that require like that kind of setup for either the retention holster with like a dump pouch and AR mag holsters and that kind of stuff. We have run that equipment before, and it's nice to have that option,
It
right? And
is.
it's nice to say, bring what you have, because if you chose to shoot again, if you had an appendix rig and you had like a inside the waistband mag carrier, like an extra one, you could come and shoot, and it's all legal in USPSA now
Yeah.
versus like 4 or 5 years ago that stuff was not.
Exactly. Which is really nice, kind of like what Phil was saying, how you're making it a lot easier for people to try something out without having to spend a fortune just to get something, and you hope that you actually like it. So,
The other thing I will say that our club does really well is, like, when you had your gear with you, like, it to me it feels very natural. We see a lot more people showing up with that type of gear, And I think the culture has changed, especially with our club anyway, and USPSA in general, where it's like if you don't show up with the race stuff, nobody's going to care. And like, bring what you got, right? And
Exactly.
they especially understand the new shooter, and people, like I said, will show up in our battle belts for matches, and people are like, "Oh, what are you guys doing?" Because we know we have race gear.
I know, right? I
But like,
remember
hey, we're
that.
practicing for a match, right? And
Now
we
they're
can
like, "You
still
ready
meet
to go
all
to
the situations.
war?"
Like, did we have we worn our plate carriers yet to a match yet? I don't think we have. I don't think
No,
we've worn.
dude, you and I ain't. You can do. I'm not doing that.
I might.
You have
It's
fun
you.
with that. That's heavy, man.
Well, I know.
Phil, I am officially a B class shooter now. I am. I actually want to be competitive now.
I see how it is.
Now that I went from U to B, I actually care.
Yeah.
Or I can just take my magwell off and just do carry optics whenever I do that.
Yeah, no, we always joke about that. Tyler and I are. It's either too much of a hassle to remove the magwell off of our striker fire pistols, or we like the magwell. I think it goes back and forth between those.
I'm just
So
too
we
lazy to take it off, or I just
so,
forget.
so we both shoot in limited optics, and that's literally the only advantage we have is the magwell. We have none of the, we don't have a gas pedal. We don't have a hammer fired pistol.
Nope.
It's all like striker
It's
fire pistol.
literally all because of the magwell.
Yes.
And I will take it. Hey, but yeah, so I guess now, so Isaac, I guess now moving on from gear and all of that, what was today like for you? Tell me about that experience.
Well, I guess Tyler. Sorry, I don't mean to jump. I'm curious, like for the people that are listening, what Tyler shot today.
What do you mean by that?
Like what kind of what pistol did he bring?
I mean, I shot up my Shadow Systems MR920 War Poet, so
Yeah, and I'm sorry. Like I'm curious what Isaac brought. Like, I
I know.
apologize.
I knew exactly.
I said Tyler. I meant to say Isaac.
I
And
know.
I don't know why.
I knew exactly what you're
Oh,
saying. I was
oh my
just being a
gosh.
butt there.
Tyler just wanted to shout out the War Poet for sure.
Straight up,
I know.
Pastor
He
John
likes to
Lovell,
flex. He likes to flex in the pores.
Sir Pastor John Lovell. He's a pastor now. Isn't that crazy?
Maybe I'll become a pastor
That's true. That's
of
true.
the
I'm a pastor
Jedi,
now. Now I think
the
about it.
Jedi Knight Church.
I mean, he's yeah, I know, right? So yeah, so Isaac, yeah, go ahead. Tell us about that. That's true. Let's talk about your gear. We did
Yeah,
kind of briefly talk about it. Let's
and
talk about your belt, your mat. You talked about how you had a canted mag holster, and let's talk about your gun. Well, I guess let's talk about your belt first. What'd you have today?
and the why behind everything as well too.
Mm-hmm.
So my battle belt that I have is Ronin gear
Oh, nice.
battle belt. I mean, it's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Very quality gear. I mean, you couldn't ask for better. I have Kiwi mag pouches.
Yep.
Nice.
Love S-Tac
I
Kiwis.
typically, yeah, they're great.
They might as well be race mag holsters. Let's be honest. They're so fast. They're very fast, but these happen to have great retention.
they're I love my S-Tacs.
So I added the 40-degree mag caddy. I typically have 2 pistol, 2 rifle
Mm-hmm.
on there. And then, I mean, working around, I've got a dump pouch. I forget the brand, but it's basically a dump pouch that it stows away and then pulls out. So it's
Reminds me of a blue Force Gear one that I have.
that's the one. That
There we
is
go.
it. And then I've got medical on the back with a tourniquet,
Yep.
and I just got this connector. Basically, it's a little magnetic hook on the back that I can hang my ear pro on.
That's
It's
so
a
cool.
tack trap is
Mhm.
what it's called.
Okay.
Which was really nice because ear pro gets uncomfortable throughout the day. So when I was able to take it off and hang it on there for a minute was very convenient. It also works well for like holding gloves, stuff like that. And then my holster on there, it's a mid drop. I've got the T-Rex arms holster with a retention strap around the leg.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have a quick pick knife. It's the War Poet one.
Hey,
You guys in your war poet gear,
love War Poet, man.
flexing on his pores.
I don't know. Whatever, Phil. I was gonna say, let's talk about your pistol after this.
It's just a Smith &
Um,
Wesson.
Oh,
Real quick on
yeah.
on your holster, Isaac. Since I used your name correct and didn't say Tyler this time.
There we go.
Is your holster? I don't think it was retention, but was it? Did it have any kind of mechanism to release the pistol? I'm not overly familiar with the T-Rex arms.
No, it's just like a level 1 holster, no retention.
Gotcha.
I mean, besides friction retention.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it is something that if you decided to go with a race belt, you could transition over pretty easily.
Yeah.
Do you
And
have like
typically,
a Safariland QLS on there as well, or is it just direct mounted?
I have the QLS and I typically run a
Nice.
Safariland holster.
Yep.
So I switched over to this holster for
For the
the match.
match. Yeah. I
Typically,
totally
I
get
run that holster in a different kit. Um, so yeah,
it. And what about your pistol?
I have a Glock 19 with an RMR. Internally, it's all stock.
Okay. Anything else? Is it all stock, or do you have it a little up changed or upgraded?
I have I stippled the grip. I have a beaver tail grip on the back there, and then I mean it has like a teardrop extended mag or slide release.
Mm-hmm. So why'd you go with the Glock Perfection route?
I mean, I love Glocks. I think they're, the important part is they're very reliable.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to work when you want them to work. They're absolutely not the best gun out there. Like, they're not the fanciest, greatest.
But they're perfect.
I mean,
Including the Glock.
Gaston says they are. So
Yeah, when you make the exact gun in several different sizes, larger and bigger, I guess you could say that you have your perfect one out there somewhere.
I mean, we have 15 of the exact same phone, so
I mean, but Apple also
Are
makes
you saying
computers.
iPhone's perfect?
Just saying.
no, they're just
Apple
milking money.
Apple also makes laptops and
That's all
your
the exact same.
in earbuds and
That's all the exact same. I can't say much as I use my MacBook in front of me and my iPhone and my AirPods, so I can't say much. I love Apple. I do not have an Apple Watch though. I used to. I love my Garmin Instinct. Garmin, please sponsor us too.
they might actually, just because they actually provide. Garmin's one of those weird companies. Try not to get on a tangent. That's why I wouldn't. But Garmin is one of those companies that they actually make a chronograph, and they make like the best current chronograph that you can buy.
Really?
Yes,
Wow.
and it's
good, but okay.
it's a little pricey, but it's so small, and easy to set up, and it from what I understand, is quite accurate. And it's always funny to me because I think of companies like Garmin as being like they're in a space where they're making watches and other GPS related items, right?
Mhm.
And then they came out of nowhere and they're like, "Hey, shooting community, would you like a fantastic chronograph that's going to kick the butt off of any other like chronograph that you have out there?" And we're all like, "Where did this come from?" Like, and I wonder too because it hasn't gotten like out, quote unquote out. And you can use chronograph for other things, right? Like, imagine you could probably chronograph your bow and arrow, right? But again, I'm ending my tangent here. But I feel like they're putting themselves in the line by making shooting stuff. They didn't have to make chronograph. They probably make a lot of money off them, but they did. So Garmin, please sponsor us. Anyway, Isaac, do you run a light on your gun at all?
Yeah, I have a TLR. I think it's the 8.
You have the
Yeah,
laser on it?
No.
So probably the 7 then, maybe?
Yeah, it must be the 7. As you can tell, I'm very up to date on what lights I have on there.
You're perfectly fine, man. But no, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, of course, it's like a Glock 19 clone. Let's be real. That's all it is with more money put into it. Because you can only improve. All right, I'm done with that perfection.
Well,
joke.
yeah.
But
Well,
I
and I was
it.
gonna say that's another example of USPSA making a change. Like I don't know, maybe 3 years ago now, where they allowed lights on guns.
Mhm.
They didn't allow that before, but again, it's one of those examples of like Isaac just happens to have a light on his pistol, and that's the way that he shoots it.
Yep.
And it's weird to not allow it. Now I know it can cause some competitive like differences, and there was a company actually based out of Michigan. It was Lock Grips. They made a light because all I had to do was light up. It didn't say it had to be certain lumens or whatever. Blah blah blah. They literally made a brass, quote unquote, and I'm doing bunny ears. You can't see me, but a brass light that you could attach to the front of your gun to help bring the weight down. And they took one of those little tiny like keychain lights and they inserted it inside of there. And all you have to do is like because you have to function check your light if you're at a level 2 match and above. and all you do is just press on it, and it makes a little tiny light. But it was
Mm-hmm.
technically a light.
Oh my
But gamers gonna game. I think Paul, the Arc Squad, ran one at one point, and then I think he kind of realized it was kind of jank, and then stopped running it.
Yeah. It's
But I run
interesting.
light.
Yeah,
So
I know you do. I've contemplated it, but I feel probably because I use a TLR1, which is just so big and bulky
that's what I use. Yeah.
that it is it I feel like it slows me down, or at least it
Mm,
slows my draws down, because I have thought long and hard about it, of because in all my competitions in my concealed carry, I carry with my TLR1, but whenever I do USPSA, that's the only time I take my light off. I just feel like it affects at least my draw from my side. It affects it enough to where I feel like it slows me down. So I'd rather
hmm.
keep the speed versus having the weight and slowing me down, because personally my recoil control's doing just fine. Granted, I just gotta work on my sight acquisition a little better and slow down a hair. But other than that, like I don't.
Just a hair.
Yeah, just a hair. Hey, I mean, I did pretty good on classifier today. I'm really happy about that
Yeah,
classifier
your
today.
first place, man.
I did. I looked it up. It was, can you count? I got a 13.33 to get a master rank. I need a 13. I think it was like a 14.3, 14.5. I can't remember. It was like, no, it was a 13.8. That's what it was. It's like a
Yeah, you said
13.8.
you're 0.5 points
I
off.
was half a point away from a master
That's
classifier
crazy.
today, which was wild to me. Granted, this is exactly what I would do. It was basically a build drill, reload, build drill. So that's what I practice.
It was a really fun classifier. I think it's honestly the first, personally, and I know you did the same, Tyler, and probably Isaac as well. But it's the first classifier I ever shot where I never looked down my sights. It's all point shooting.
Oh,
You're
well, straight
you're
up point
so
shooting.
close to the target. Like I literally, if I like bent just right over, I could probably tap the target with my front of my pistol, like from where I was standing in the box.
Well, you are also like
I
eight
know I'm very
feet
tall.
tall,
No,
so
honestly, it's probably like a couple feet away, but still. Anyway, so Isaac, taking us into match day, you woke up this morning, took your Flintstone vitamins, and then what? Where was your head at?
it was just getting ready for the day, making sure I had everything. I didn't want to get there and realize, oh, I forgot my water jug or something important that I was going to need. And it was just getting ready, and I wasn't overly nervous. It was
Hmm.
going to be, I knew it was going to be fun. I wasn't expecting to be the absolute best shooter out there. I was just expecting to have a fun day where I got to shoot guns and hang out with some cool people and just kind of learn about the sport. And that way I have a base to improve from.
I find it really interesting that you said that you were not nervous going into your match. I think it took me every sport. It was usually like a year before I wasn't nervous anymore. And in USPSA, I think for the first like 2 years, every time I'd go into a map, I was nervous, and it's like a nervous excitement, right? And
oh,
you
for
get into it
sure.
and you get going, and then it all falls away. I
Yeah,
don't get that anymore. Sometimes I gotta miss it, to be honest.
yeah.
Tyler, were you ever nervous like when your first couple matches at all?
I still do.
Interesting.
So, but this is how I am for everything. So, whether I don't get nervous until about the hour before anything. So, whether even whenever I public speak, I have the exact same thing. Like everything's good until like that hour before. And then it just hits me. It's like, oh, yeah, this is about to happen. And then for me, it's like, well, it just start already. And then the moment I
Yeah.
start, I'm good. Same with today. Like I had kind of like that nerves kind of just there. It's like, I mean, it wasn't like it wasn't like a 8 out of 10 out of 10. It was probably like a 3 or a 4. Like it's low, but it's there. I feel it. I know. It's like, okay, this is coming up. Okay, we're leading into it. And as we got closer, I was like, oh yeah, it's finally here. And then once I kind of get up there, I'm like, I'm good. Except today, I did. I think my first, which is funny because my first couple stages were actually really good, but I think I was still really giddy, or still like those nerves were there because I was like anticipating the timer, which I can tell Brent would notice too. So he was like, he was just messing with me at times.
That's
I feel
funny.
like so. I was like, "Shooter, are you ready?" I'm like, "Uh huh." And like you could tell, I jumped a split second before the timer. And he just laughs. He's like, "Are you ready now?" I'm like, "Thanks, Brent," because he just knew. So, but eventually it was fine, and then yeah, usually that kind of just calmed down. It was just fine. But that's for me at least. But that's so cool though, Isaac. But once again, it goes to show how different people are and how people. Which I mean, for you, I mean, how long have you been shooting now, Isaac?
I mean, middle school summer camp 22 range,
Fair enough.
like, but as soon as I moved out of the house, I started buying guns,
That's
and
awesome.
I've been going
Wow.
to the range with my buddies, running drills, doing stuff, just learning as much as I could,
Yep.
trying to get better. And I think for me, like the nervous part was when I was texting you guys and asking the questions of like, what do I
That's
need?
that's
What
fair.
are
Yeah.
what are the like things I need to watch out for? And then when we went to the range and like practice some stuff, I'm like, okay, like I can do this. Like that's no big deal.
Hmm.
Um, as well as I think a little bit later in the match when I'm like, we're already several stages in, and I'm like, okay, like I can do this. Like the stages are getting bigger and longer, and there's a lot to remember. Like that's when it
Yeah.
was kind of. There were a few like there was one stage particularly. I was like, I did not have the opportunity to run through this stage and feel like I actually know where every target is.
Hmm.
And
I
Yep.
remember that stage
Welcome to
fondly.
memorization stages.
I remember that stage very fondly because I missed a target in that stage.
Well, you hit it.
The second time I did when I ran back
So
because I.
actually, I want to get into this for sure.
Mhm.
And I'm gonna take us up to this point. Sorry, I'm gonna interrupt you, but
You're good.
like,
Go for it, man.
so for the match today, we had a bunch of really quick stages that were like, under like 20 rounds and below.
Hmm.
And then Tyler is really like fantastic at those quick stages.
Oh,
And I
it was
think
great.
for a
I was,
new shooter like with Isaac to start on those stages, where you couldn't ask for better stages to start with.
and what was really nice
They're very
about those,
straightforward.
yeah. Well, what was
Yep.
really nice about those stages as well, like the very first one was start from outside of the shoot box, and your gun is propped or
Yep.
staged on top of the mat. So this way, like it was nice because now it forces you to slow down a little bit, be more meticulous. So now you can go in and the grab the gun, go and shoot versus like just straight from your holster going as fast as you can. So that I even noticed that was good for me because it forced me to slow down a little bit.
Yeah, I think in it makes you focus. It's a good point. It makes you focus in on what's going on with the match and try like for your first stage, and it helps because it's interrupting your normal chain of events in a typical stage. So I think it helps you slow down just enough for that first stage, and every forced to slow down. So as a result, I think a lot of us had a really good start to our matches because of that stage. But these stages are really quick, really fast. We have them in some of our smaller bays, but then we have what's called the desert at South Kent, and it was a bay that was two bays at one point. They removed the middle divider and they made it into this massive stage. And then since then, the USPSA like setup squad and stage designers Brent has decided that he wants to make these stages as difficult as possible. So not only the memorization stages, but they are also you're shooting at a pretty long distance, and you're having to move quite a bit. So they're fun. They're different than what you would see at a lot of USPSA matches who have limitations on the side of their bays. But then one of the stages, Tyler, if you would like to walk us through what happened on this stage, and then after that, I'm curious to get Isaac's thoughts on it.
So, like Phil mentioned, this was a memorization stage, and this was one that Phil was just talking about. How essentially there are two separate shooting areas. So it's a massive berm that's I don't even know how long it is. It's probably 50 yards long.
Yeah, I
I'd
think
say
that's correct.
at least by probably I don't know
But
20
it's a good square. It's 50
30
by
yard.
50.
It might be 50 by 50. I was thinking like maybe 30 by 50. Either way, it doesn't matter. But it's a very big stage. So you're kind of going in and you're ready to go. And it's mirrored. There's a barricade, a wall in the middle. So now you have to move around. And the way that it was set up, there was one side on the right side where there's a there's a basically a popper, a steel, and you had to stand at one exact spot in order to see it because there are two walls that are so close together, and you had to perfectly line up your shot to hit it. So and for me being a lefty anyway, I need to come from the. It's better for me to go from right to left anyway. So for me, it's like, okay, that's what I'll do. So I'll go left to right, and then I go through all of that, and then I run probably a good 20 yards to get to the second area, the second shooting area. I'm already reloading. I'm going. I'm shooting. But what was interesting is as I was running, because of these Axel in ears, Axel sponsor us. I'm asking her to sponsor us today, man. But as I'm running up, dude, like I can hear someone like say, "Oh," or cardboard or something. I heard something, and I knew. I was like, "Okay, what did I miss?" Because I already knew, just like what Isaac said. This is this stage. I feel like I'm gonna forget something. So as I was running, I noticed one of the popper on the left side was still up. So then I go through, I shoot everything else, and then I turn around. Brent and Phil already knew I was gonna run back, so I like briefly saw Brent's face, like he's gonna do it, and I book it back to get back to the first shooting area, get into position, turn around, and I shoot that popper, but I hit it, but I hit it low so it wouldn't fall, and of course I'm freezing because I'm like, what just
You're
happened?
like, I hit it.
I
I heard the
hit it.
ping.
I heard a clear hit. It wasn't like I nicked it. It was a clear hit. And then Brent looked at me and said, "All right, you got two options, man. You can either go for it again or stop." And I decided to stop. So then I unloaded, showed clear, and he looked at me and said, "All right, Tyler, I can do a calibration test if you want." And I said, "Sure, why not?" And of course, he did the test and it fell right down. So
Yeah.
that was probably my worst stage of the day. I think I did that in like 36 seconds, and it was like a 2.93 hit factor. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and it was funny because um, I was trailing behind Brent.
Hmm.
And as Brent and I are both going forward, we both noticed that the popper was still up. And we both knew because it was you that you were going to run back to re engage it. So we kind of like stopped and we kind of moved forward. And all of a sudden we're like, oh crap, he's going to come back at us. So we start moving backwards. And Brent's not 100% sure what to do because he's got the timer. And we start moving backwards and we like booked it back so that we would not be in your way. And I remember like, I don't know if you watched the recording of your video or not, Tyler,
Briefly, very
but I
briefly.
remember like, I was like, dude, that's going to be so shaky. And we booked it back and fortunately we got out of your way and everything was completely safe.
I
But
mean, I wouldn't mind if you guys couldn't keep up and like,
I
oh,
know
oh no, I have to do a
we knew it
reshoot.
was
Oh
coming. We knew it
no.
was coming. And it's just one of those things from like a, like, just knowing situationally, like having shot USPSA for a while, what if stuff are missed, and always you never really know, especially because I've RO'd in the past, and I still do from time to time. But you kind of know to expect the unexpected because they don't have this, like, if they get to the end of the stage and they forgot a target, they can go back and get it. There's nothing in the rules that says they can't go sprint back up stage, or up the front of the stage, 20 yards and re-engage a popper.
Yeah.
There's
Well,
nothing that says you can't do that.
mhm. And
So
it's
you have to be on your
also
toes.
Well, it's also knowing each other as well. Like you know me, you know I'm
Right.
going to run back because
Yep.
I am someone one who wants to make sure that I hit. If I know that it's there and I'm still loaded, I will run back and do it because at the same time I know my speed. Because I, I don't say this as a knock on you because like even though
No,
time wise I had to run back, I think our times were very
they
similar for
were very
that
similar.
stage. I
Yep.
think I had a 36. I think you had like what, like a 31 second or something like
I
that.
don't remember. I'll have to look it up, but
But it was close, and all
yep.
that to say, it's because like you and I, we talk about this how I'm faster, but you're more accurate, and you're more consistent than I am, and that's something that I need to work on. But I think that comes just with my youth, I guess, because I mean I am like half your age, right?
You are like half my age.
I am not half your
So I guess my question for like Isaac on this one, having gone through the first three stages, and you're like, I'm putting myself in your head, and you're like, oh, it's not bad. And then
age.
you get to the desert, and you're like, what the heck? I'm shooting headshots with because we had targets that had like headshots that were covered by no shoots at a pretty good distance. We had small poppers. You had a tiny little window to be able to shoot down. What was going through your mind at that time? You're like, oh shoot, or were you? Did you feel like you were prepared?
It was kind of a diabolical stage. Like it was. I mean, we started off on some really great stages where it was nice ease in. Then it's like, oh, this is the real deal. All of a sudden, and I'm like,
USPSA.
like I just tried going through it and was trying to run the stage, and they're like, okay, we're starting, and I'm like, I 100% do not know what course of fire I'm going to run. I don't know what like targets I'm going to engage first, and it's go time. So I just was paying really close attention to those who were going before me, how they were running the stage, because I hadn't picked out a plan yet for myself. So I was going to try and figure out based off what they're doing, what I need to do. And I had to take far too many shots at both of those long distance poppers, unfortunately. So that involved an additional mag change, which I was not anticipating. Those were pretty far shots at small targets.
Oh, they were.
And I missed both of them a couple times.
And you're also running 15 round mags today too, right?
I had one 19 round, and then
Gotcha.
everything else was 15 round mags.
Mm-hmm.
So there was
a 32 round course of fire.
Right. Yeah.
So do the math on that.
I know the struggle, man. I remember that because I was running 15 round mags for a long time. Eventually, then I got to 17s, and now I have all 19 round mags. And Phil and all the guys keep trying to convince me, Tyler, just get a 21, 22 round mag already. I'm like, no, I'm cheap.
So I'll probably at least get some Glock 17 mags here soon.
Oh, for sure.
Help a little bit.
Yeah, I've got the Glock, the 19 rounder mags for the tan Glock 19Xs. So those have been awesome for me at least. But
Glock perfection.
Yeah, I know, right? Which I mean, like I said, kind of like what Phil was saying, was just really cool. Like those first three stages were like a perfect warm up. I mean, for all of us, I think. But once we got to those, I know for me, I fell apart. That's where I fell apart today. Like those middle stages, those two long range, and the very next one just messed me right up. And then finally at the end, that's where I'm like, even Brent was like, "What took you so long, Tyler?" I'm like, It's like I don't know, man. So
when we talk about this a lot too when we're at these matches where there's a straightforward stage, right? And it's how fast can you burn this stage down, right? And you're not thinking about it. It's very linear, right? So you go point A, point B, and that was the first three stages basically.
Oh yeah.
And then when we get out to the desert and then the one next to it, and both of those stages were, the one was more linear than the other, but there was like one of the stages that required some back and forth shooting, and they were kind of mirrored, but they weren't perfectly mirrored. Like there were 3 paper targets on either side and then 1 popper on each side, right? But they were set slightly different but close enough. And then you also had the option to engage a far set of paper on one of the sides of the setup based on like if you wanted to. So for me in my brain, if I have balanced out targets, like if I have 4, there's again 4 targets on the side, 4 on this side, 3 paper and one steel on each side. Like that for some reason registers in my brain, and I cannot register another target in there. Like there's no space for it during that time. And then what's interesting is because options are always fun, Britt for the first section was like a rectangle, right? They're both rectangle spaces that we were in, but one was set out on a long ways on a rectangle, and then the other section as you went down was a diamond. So your brain, when you see that diamond, you're like, oh, I should be using all the corners of this diamond, or why is this a diamond? And you could use those, but then I had the luxury of having Brent go first, and he was the stage designer, so I saw him go in front of me, and he only used the back and the front of the diamond. I'm like, oh gee. I hadn't even thought about like, oh, I can engage all the targets from the front and the back of this box. I don't need to actually look at the diamond section of this setup. So sometimes it kind of gets in your own head when it's really not maybe as complex as you think it is. But you're trying to do, per Isaac's comments earlier, you're trying to do all of this while trying to be safe and not getting DQ'd, right? There's a lot to think about.
Mm-hmm. There were a
Absolutely.
lot of, I think early on too, there were a lot of stages that were really close to the 180 as well.
Yeah. Yep.
I was like, thanks, guys. Once again, it's about being methodical as well, but at the same time, not letting it get too much into your head either to where you get that analysis paralysis.
There
So,
was a stage that Phil pointed out to me as I was running it and trying to game what I was going to do before we
In like
actually
the
ran
pre stage, yeah.
it. There was basically like two 180 traps, which
yeah.
if I wasn't paying attention, if he hadn't said anything, could have easily broken that 180 rule.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's the nice thing about level 1 matches. One of the reasons I really like club matches is because I guess even on a walkthrough, probably it's not like coaching, it's just pointing it out. You have that ability to point those things out to newer shooters, right? Because
Oh, yeah.
again, the goal of a match is not to get people DQ'd. And if you have people that
No.
are setting up and running a match or trying to get people DQ'd, that's not a great match. Stop going to that and go to a different match.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also a challenge because you have to be able to allow for new shooters to be able to shoot the match, but then also for experienced shooters to have a challenge. So something like that where you kind of have an angle where you're going back up range, but if with experienced shooters, to put your gun out to the side, keep it pointed down at the berm while you're moving, right? With a newer shooter, you have this inclination to keep the pistol in front of you, right? And then if you do that, then now you're going to break the 180 while you're going back up range to get into the next target position or shooting position to shoot your targets.
Mm-hmm.
So it's up to the shooters that are more experienced to notice those things and then point them out to the newer shooters so that they don't get DQ'd for stupid reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And if somebody gets DQ'd in their first match, and Isaac, I think you're emotionally you're well enough along where you're not going to be like, I'm never coming back again. But there's always that chance of somebody being like, well, I got DQ'd because somebody created a stage that was really tough and I didn't think about this, right?
Right.
So again, it's the job of a more experienced shooter to really point those out to
Mm-hmm.
other people. And I think those kind of things are those little tips. And I'm not the only one that was doing that. Like everybody on the squad was helping out.
Oh, for sure.
It's pointing out stuff with being constructive, pointing out things to do without being condescending, and that
Mm-hmm.
can be hard to do sometimes in the firearms community.
Which is exactly what I was kind of pointing out at the beginning, is that's very typical in the community, is just to put other shooters down if they don't know everything you know,
Mm-hmm.
which is not how you bring more people into the gun community and into shooting sports. And that's why stuff like shooting USPSA can seem overwhelming. And like, there's a reason I haven't done it up until now. It's not because I didn't think it looked cool or didn't think I would want to do it. It's because there's a lot going on, and to step into something new that you've never done
Oh, for
can be
sure.
scary.
It is
And
scary.
there's a lot going on with USPSA, and most people like probably don't realize that you can use the gear you already have. Like, there were people today that just had mag caddies like threaded onto their belt.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it doesn't take a lot of extra gear. But everyone you see doing it has these race gear setups and has all this expensive Gucci gear,
Yeah.
and like, you expect that you need that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's so true. Well, I mean, I even think of there was a guy in our squad today. He was using his tier 1 appendix holster,
Yeah.
which was awesome. I mean,
Yep.
I know Phil, that's what I personally conceal carry. So Phil in the past many times like, "Hey, why don't you go ahead and do it?" So, but either way, dude, that was so awesome. I'm glad that you had an awesome time today. Do you have like any closing thoughts, Isaac? Or anything else that you kind of that stuck out to you today?
Yeah, I would definitely just say, if it's something that you've considered or think looks fun, like, get out and do it. Like, find a group. It seems a lot more overwhelming than it actually is. It seems like it takes a ton to get into it. It seems like it's going to be super expensive. And yeah, like it can add up, but I mean, it was like $25 to be in the match, and then your ammo, if you already have the gear, it's not a huge expense.
Yep.
And
cheaper than owning a boat.
yeah, and I would definitely just say, like, if it's something you've considered, like, get out and do it. It's not as big of a deal as it seems. And it's a ton of fun. Like, I had an absolute blast today.
That's awesome, man.
Like, it was great meeting everyone on the team. It was great shooting. Like, everyone was a team player. Everyone was helping each other out. And I would highly recommend doing it.
So are you gonna do it again?
Oh yeah, I'll be there next month.
Sweet.
Awesome.
Well,
I just checked sign up opens in
12
hours.
hours. Oh,
12 hours now.
Yeah, 12 now. Yeah. I know. I did the exact same. When I said that I was looking up, I legit was. It said 13
I know.
hours.
I was too. I was like, yeah, gotta get on that squad 4.
Because it's true. It really does book up, which is hilarious because Phil and I, we signed up for a sectional competition, a level 2 competition next week. And originally it was going to, because my buddy and I were going to do it. It was me and my buddy, and from out of town, Phil. I invited Phil, Brent, and Daryl to join. They did. And then pretty much everyone else from Squad 4 squatted with us. So it was really funny. I'm like, hey, look at that.
It's gonna be like an extended. It's gonna be like an extended, fun squad. But the nice thing is that Brent and Daryl won't have to run the match, and they won't have to RO. So I'm sure they're gonna have.
They'll probably really appreciate that. Now they can really just focus on shooting, have fun. They don't have to worry about any emergencies. Or I mean, I feel like I know today there was a DQ. Last month there was a DQ in the first stage last month.
Yeah, in May there was a DQ too on the last stage.
On the very last stage, at least.
Yep.
So. Yep. On his best stage ever, competition ever. But whatever. Actually, Brent wasn't even there for that one either. Now that I think about it, yeah, I had people reach out to me later, like, "Hey, I saw you got a DQ. What happened?" I'm like, dude.
But you're absolutely right that your guys' group fills up quick because I signed up like the day it opened up. There was like maybe 1 or 2 signed up in some of the groups, and there was like 5 already signed up in your group.
Yeah.
It's the party squad, man.
It really is.
All right. So Isaac, something. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Tyler.
No, go for it, Phil.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
Dude, you are fine. If you have a question for Isaac, go for it. I was actually asking you a question.
Oh, I was going to close this out, but if you want to ask a question first, then we'll close it out after that.
Phil, you know exactly what my question is going to be.
Is it okay? So when we close out our episodes, Isaac, we ask for what we call dad advice or life advice. Was that what you were going to ask, Tyler?
Mm-hmm.
So Tyler is going to start us off tonight with his life advice, and then we'll make an Isaac sandwich. Isaac, you can go after Tyler. But Tyler, what kind of dad advice do you have for us this evening?
Well, I guess before that, did you have a question for Isaac, or were you going to ask him?
No, that was literally what I was going to ask. I was going to move into the ending of the episode with the dad advice.
It's all good. I just want to make sure you didn't actually have a question for. But
no, that was literally it.
Well, perfect. See, look at us. We're in the same wavelength. So for me, would be it's okay to take things one step at a time. Like, I feel like we live in a social media world where it's so easy for us to compare our lives where we think it should be, or we look at other people and how that's just not reality. It's okay to take things one step at a time. I know Isaac kind of briefly mentioned that too at USPSA. If you're doing new things is hard. Entering the unknown is hard. In fact, I feel like the unknown is probably the scariest thing people can experience, and that's why people would rather deal with pain and anguish than deal with the unknown because of that fear, that anxiety. But just take things one step at a time, whether it's doing something new or even just doing something you don't like doing. Like for me, I hate doing the dishes. So maybe just one dish at a time, man. So, or even just reading, just read a page, a chapter a day. That's okay. You don't have to read a whole book at once. So take things one step. What's up,
Taylor?
Yeah.
How do you eat an elephant?
All at once.
That is correct. All right,
one bite at a time.
Yeah. All right, Isaac, your turn.
I would say love others. Like, give people the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
Like, you never know what people are going through, and sometimes a small kind gesture can make a world of difference in someone else's life. Or just not jumping to anger when someone does something that upsets you. Because, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I mean, is that really going to make a big deal if, like, someone upsets you and then you don't react? Like, is that going to ruin your life? Absolutely not. But if you react poorly, that could affect someone else in a big way because you don't know what they're going through.
Yeah.
So I would just say always give others the benefit of the doubt. Don't be quick to anger, and make sure that, it's always, I would say, even like when you improve someone else's day, typically you also get a little bit of that. So even if you do it for selfish reasons, love on others.
That's so good. All right, Philip, what you got
That's
for us?
fantastic. So I was thinking about that as we were going through the episode, and it's not nearly as deep as both of yours were, but I think it is important. When you are, and kind of piggybacking off of what Tyler was saying, when you are starting something, it's not the gear or the equipment that makes you a good shooter, and it doesn't. If you don't have, like Isaac was saying earlier, if you don't have the gear that all the other people have that have been doing this for a while, don't feel intimidated by that fact, because, and this goes to anything that you're doing, whether it's shooting, if you're boating, joking about that, bass fishing, kayaking, skiing, or whatever. It does not matter, and if somebody's judging you on that, then they're probably they're buying gear and maybe they're not quite as skilled. I'm not saying it's always the case, but get out there, do the thing that you're going to do with the equipment that you have on hand, and you can always make plans to improve that stuff later, because it's fun. We always talk about gear a lot on this episode, but realistically, it's more about the experience than it is about the gear that you have.
Oh,
right?
100%.
And building that life skill. And people may argue and say, well, shooting is not a life skill. I disagree with you on that, because you never know when you're going to need it, number one. And number two, it is something that will function for you your entire life, no matter what the situation is. In times of peace, you can use it as a fantastic pastime. But if something does happen, you have that skill set there with you. So I guess really what I'm trying to say is focus on the experience, less on the equipment.
For sure. That's awesome. Well, sweet everyone. Thanks for joining us for another awesome episode of Acceptable Accuracy. Isaac, that was so cool that you were able to join us today for both USPSA and this podcast and trying something new. So that's really awesome. And yeah, so we're going to go ahead and sign off, and we'll see you guys next week.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and what else am I forgetting, Tyler?
Rate.
Rate.
And also, exciting news, we will be transitioning to video podcasts very soon. So you get to see our pretty faces in the very near future.
Does that mean that I have to wear clothes, Tyler?
We are a PG-ish podcast. So.
I joke because Tyler asked me the exact same question earlier today.
I did just finish mowing my lawn, so I will admit that.
I do mow your lawn naked.
Oh,
that's awkward.
I'm just saying wow, I mean, I did shower.
Right.
But all that to say, all right, well, we'll see you guys next week. Thanks again, Isaac. And all right, catch you guys later. Bye.
Bye.